Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel and to another book review or series review. I'm very excited because today I get to talk about my favorite author, Abby Jimenez. You guys know if you watch my channel, I talk about her all the time. She is my absolute favorite. And today I am going to be doing a bit of a review on the Friend Zone series. These are her first 3 books. Now it's going to be spoiler free, so don't worry, you don't have to skip anything in this video. You can keep watching all the way through. And I'm going to review each book briefly. I'll go over what each one is about and just talk about Abby Jimenez as well. Keep in mind, I do have a video that I recommend you watch before this one. So because of the reading order that Abby Jimenez recommends for her books, I do think you should watch that video first. I will link it below. It is a review, a series review about the Part of Your World series, because she technically recommends that you read that first. I'll get into that later. But anyway, definitely watch that video first and then come back to this one. I don't want to be too repetitive with what was in my other video about Abby's other series, so I'll try and change it up a little bit, but I do want to start out a similar way and kind of have this video be similarly laid out, if you will. So I want to start by talking about how I discovered her books, which is a very quick, easy story because I discovered them through TikTok and Book Talk. So yeah, I first discovered Abby's books at the end of the summer last year in 2024. And I just heard amazing reviews about her books. I think because Just for the Summer had come out last year, that's the one that I was hearing a lot about. So I thought I'd give it a try, and I ordered the whole Part of Your World series, and I completely fell in love with those books, you guys. And in that moment, Abby became my favorite author, those became my favorite books, and to this day, nothing has really touched those books. I still love them. I reread them recently, and I just can't get enough of her stories, you guys. I think she's amazing. So I read those in the fall, I guess, early fall. And I also got to read her newest book, which is Say You'll Remember Me. I got to read that early because I got an early copy with NetGalley. So I'll talk more about that in a bit. But yeah, so I've read all of her books now except her short stories. I need to get to that. I've read one short story. So yeah, I've read all of her books now, and overall I can safely say she's still a favorite author. The Part of Your World series was definitely more my favorite, but I do still recommend her books, and I do think you should read the Friend Zone series as well. So I also want to tell you a little bit about Abby Jimenez. So she lives in Minnesota. I believe she's from California, and she is a Food Network champion. She founded Nadia Cakes in 2007 out of her own home. There are 3 locations. There are 2 in Minnesota and 1 in California. I'm dying to go one day, but I now live in the UK, so it is especially hard for me to get there. But one day I know I will. And now I'm just going to share some of the reasons why I love Abby's books. So first off, her sense of humor is phenomenal. She has a great sense of humor. All of her books I find to be so funny. I'm often laughing out loud because of them. And yeah, you'll be, again, I said this in my last video about her Part of Your World series, but in one scene you could be giggling and kicking your feet and crying at the same time. She has a great way of balancing things out in her books, but she is so funny. Also, all of her books include dual point of view, which is my favorite thing. I think all romance books should have that. If they don't, I'm always slightly disappointed. I think just because Abby is so good at doing that. And I always wonder how, especially I don't know how authors can write from a female and male perspective. I feel like that would be really difficult as a woman to write about a male's perspective. I feel like that's really tricky. She does it in such a lovely way, and Abby Jimenez knows what women want because her book boyfriends, on to the next one. Her book boyfriends, you guys, are chef's kiss. They are all incredible. Especially the guys in the Part of Your World series, but I still loved the guys in the Friend Zone series too. They had their moments though, but overall her book boyfriends are so swoon-worthy, you guys. Jacob is still my favorite. I can safely say Jacob from Yours Truly is top tier. Anyway, so her book boyfriends are just phenomenal always. Also, all of her books take place in the same universe, which I love. So characters from previous books will sometimes appear in the newer books, and I love that. They make cameos, and it makes your heart so happy to know that the past couples are doing well and thriving, and I just love that. Also, I'm looking down at my laptop, by the way. I have lots of notes. And she's very good at putting Easter eggs in her books. So again, as you go through her series and everything, you're going to notice little things that, again, will just make you smile as you continue on reading. So while Abby's books are very romantic and sweet and sometimes fluffy, she also tends to cover some more serious topics in each of her books. So it's always good to read the trigger warnings beforehand and just so you know if you can handle it. But really, she does it in a mature and caring way, always. And it's never too much. It doesn't go too far. But again, if you're sensitive to certain topics, she always puts trigger warnings, I think, in the beginning of her books. So always read that beforehand, and I'm going to tell you what those are for the Friend Zone series as well. So keep watching to hear some of those. Abby has said that for all of her books, except The Friend Zone, I think, because it was her first book, she had beta readers. And also she does a lot of research as she's writing. She speaks to professionals, and at the end, I think in like her author's note, she always talks about the research that she's done and the people that kind of helped her to create these books and to make some of the more deeper topics more realistic. So I think that's really important for authors to do. And again, I don't think she did it for The Friend Zone. I could be wrong, but for all of her other books, she has done that. Okay, so I said this in the last video as well, but Abby has said this herself. So if a book doesn't, or if a book doesn't have a happy ending, it is more likely a tragedy or a love story. But her books are romance. They are contemporary romance novels. So if that tells you anything, you're gonna have pretty much guaranteed happy endings in romance novels, usually, especially with her books. So don't worry, she is going to shatter your heart, but it will be put back together in the most beautiful way. So don't worry. Again, some tears are going to be shed while you read her books, but that's okay. She will make you whole again by the end. Another thing that I love about Abby's books is that she writes the way that she speaks. Again, she's talked about this in interviews before. She doesn't try too hard with using any kind of crazy vocabulary. Her books are always easy to understand and easy to follow and read, but still in a good way. And yeah, so I love that about her. And also, she releases one book a year, but sometimes she surprises readers with short stories, so you don't have to wait too long to read more from her. And I will get into, again, more of that later in the video. So diving in a little more, we're going to talk about the spice level, the target audience, and then the correct reading order. So spice level, Abby has said that her books are low to medium spice, which I think is fair, although I'd lean more toward the low side. Those scenes are not all throughout her books. There's maybe one or two in her books, and those are usually not super graphic or in your face. Sometimes they're even more fade to black or closed door. So they're easy to skip over if you're not into reading that, and I think her books are so worth reading. So don't let that put you off if that's not something you're into. It's not all throughout her books. She's not one of those authors. And I would say because of that, the target audience would lean more toward adults, not just because of that, but also because of the more serious topics that she covers in her books. I'm sure some teenagers would probably read her books, and I'm not gonna say, I don't know, I mean, you do what you will, but I would definitely say it's targeted more toward adults. So what you want to do, Abby recommends that you start with the Part of Your World series. She believes that her writing had improved at that point and that series had become a lot more popular, I think. And so I agree. I think her writing definitely was much better in the Part of Your World series. So I think what you should do is, before you read any of her books, go to her website and subscribe to her mailing list. When you do that, you are going to get an email that includes a very, very, very short story called All Roads Lead to Here. You want to read that first. Technically, that is supposed to be read before Part of Your World. So I would start with that. Subscribe to her newsletter, her mailing list, read that very short story, and then what you're going to want to do is move into Part of Your World. After Part of Your World, you'll want to read Yours Truly, and after that, you're going to read Just for the Summer. And after you read that, you'll then want to go to one of her short stories called The Situationship. It involves characters from Just for the Summer, so don't read The Situationship until you've read Just for the Summer. And then after that, you can move on to the Friend Zone series. So you've got the Friend Zone, then the Happy Ever After playlist, then Life's Too Short, and then you have her new series, which starts with Say You'll Remember Me, and then that's the only book so far in that series. And then she's got two other short stories that you can read that don't relate to her other books. The Worst Wingman Ever and The Fall Risk. Now, I do strongly recommend that you read these books in the order that I said, because again, you don't want to miss out on Easter eggs and things like that. And while technically, yes, the Part of Your World series came second, I'm just listening to what Abby says, you guys. Her writing is significantly better in my opinion. So I do recommend that first. But anyway, all of her books can be read on their own. You don't have to read them in any order if you don't want to. If you want to pick up any random book of hers at any point, you can, and you can fully understand the plot. There's no confusion at all. Each book is about a different couple, so you're all good there. But again, it makes the whole like reading experience more enjoyable and exciting if you read them in order. And once you've read them all, I also highly recommend going back and rereading them again, because there are probably things you missed the first time around. Again, those hidden Easter eggs that I know for me, I reread all her books recently, and again, I didn't even notice certain things the first time I read the Part of Your World series, because I read the Friend Zone after. So it's a very exciting experience, and the whole Abby universe is just amazing. Alright, so we are now going to talk about each book individually. So with the Friend Zone, with the whole series actually, all of these books take place... That's actually not true. I think, so the first two books mainly take place in Los Angeles, California, and I believe this one takes place in Minnesota. There are some connections to Minnesota though for these characters, for all of them. So just keep that in mind. I love the settings. Abby has made me fall in love with Minnesota. I really want to go at some point. I know I will. So we are going to talk about the Friend Zone first. So I'm going to say this was not my favorite Abby book. I'm going to rank them all at the end for you from this series, but this was not my favorite. I will say that. Probably my least favorite Abby book that she's written, unfortunately. I really wanted to love this series, you guys, but don't let my opinion sway you. It's just my opinion. Read it for yourself, because if you loved the Part of Your World series, you're probably going to love these too. They may not be your all-time favorites, but they could be, so give it a chance. So, the tropes and themes and then trigger warnings in this book. So some of the tropes and themes, there's a love triangle. There are themes of cheating, if you will. There's not the act of actually physically cheating, but almost like emotional, if you will. I hope that made sense. Enemies to lovers, friends to lovers, miscommunication or lack of communication, friends with benefits, forced proximity, the guy falls first, the guy falls harder, slow burn. All of Abby's books are slow burn romances, which I love. Some of the trigger warnings for this book, there's strong language throughout this book. Discussion of losing a loved one, grief, depression, infertility, and cheating. So yeah, some difficult topics in this one, and some of those I think are why I didn't fully enjoy it, if I'm being honest. It wasn't the complete reason why, but some of those they're not my favorite, I guess you could say. So hopefully I don't look down at my laptop too much to go over these. I already read them like a couple weeks ago, and I've already moved on to a different book, so I hope I'm remembering things correctly. So again, no spoilers at all, so don't worry, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I want to tell you what these books are about. So the Friend Zone follows Kristen and Josh, again living in California. Kristen lives in California, Josh has just moved there from Minnesota, I think. So a little bit about them. So Kristen has her own business that she has started, where she creates and sells accessories and clothing for small dogs. Josh was in the military and he's now a fireman, and that's why he moved to California. He's now a fireman there. And Kristen and Josh actually meet by getting into a minor car accident. They just get into a fender bender, and it's not necessarily like a meet cute. They definitely get off kind of on the wrong foot. So Kristen's best friend is getting married, and Josh happens to be the best man in the wedding. So leading up to the wedding, they kind of have to get to know each other a little bit. And Kristen is in a relationship with a different guy. His name is Tyler, but he is in the military, so most of their relationship they have been apart. And I think at the beginning of this book, Tyler is not there physically with her. He is overseas. So that doesn't fully help the situation with all the, you know, the love triangle, I guess. It's just a mess. But anyway, so Kristen is navigating her long distance relationship with her growing feelings for Josh. Yeah, again, I don't love that aspect, but we're moving on. Another big part of this book that I want to talk about is the fact that Kristen is struggling with infertility. ever since she got her period when she was younger, they have just been like debilitating and painful and very uncomfortable. So she found out that she is infertile, and part of the reason that she doesn't want to be in a relationship and fall in love is because of that. She knows that she cannot have children. And I think that they said in this book that her boyfriend Tyler was fine with that, so that's why their relationship works. She finds out that Josh, on the other hand, wants a big family one day. So she knows that falling for him is not an option. She can't give him kids. So Kristen tries to keep her distance from Josh, but what makes that harder is that she has kind of hired him as a carpenter as well to help out with her small business, and so there's that forced proximity there, like I said. So it doesn't help the situation, and their feelings only grow. I think that's mainly what I can say about this one without getting into spoilers, so I'll leave it at that. But I will say I just really didn't connect with these characters. I almost felt like they were a bit too cliche in a way. Like the way Josh was written was just so almost stereotypical guy thoughts. Like his internal monologue, I just was like, really? Like, was that necessary? And Kristen is just very different to me, and you know, it's not necessarily that I can't relate to her struggle, it's just more that I just didn't connect to her as a character. I'm very different to her. She's quite blunt and kind of, I don't know, like I just couldn't relate to her. So I struggled a lot with this one because I wasn't a fan of either of the main characters. I wasn't rooting for them, and again, the whole cheating aspect, yeah, wasn't a fan of that. So overall, I gave this one, I think 3 stars. I think that's what I gave it, yeah. And now we are moving on to my favorite book in the series. I'm already hinting at my ranking of these books, but whatever. So we are moving on to the Happy Ever After playlist, which is the second book, sorry, in the series, and my favorite of the series. So this one felt quite different to the first one, and I was really nervous going into this one because I was like, okay, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Friend Zone, so I really, really hope this one is better. But then I thought to myself, well, if this is the first book she wrote, I don't think I'm gonna enjoy it. But actually I really, really did. This one I really enjoyed, you guys. So some tropes and themes in this book are grief and loss, he falls first, he falls harder, secret identity sort of, meet cute, slow burn, kind of grumpy sunshine where the female is the grumpy one and the sunshine is the male character. Some trigger warnings, and keep in mind that some of these don't relate to the main characters themselves, but maybe inside characters. So we have self-harm, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, grief, and loss. Alright, so again, I'm going to try not to look down too much, but if I do, I apologize. So Sloane is a painter and a cook, and those things that she loved have kind of taken a bit of a backseat because she has been grieving the loss of her fiance for the past 2 years. And one day she's on her way to the cemetery. I think it's like the anniversary of his death. She's on her way to the cemetery and she almost runs over a dog. And this dog manages to jump like into the sunroof of her car basically. And so she takes it to the vet. She finds out that the dog like is chipped and has an owner. So she has his owner's phone number, but she hasn't been able to get in touch with the owner. So she's calling, I think she tries for 2 weeks and doesn't manage to get a hold of the owner. So she kind of tells herself, well, if I don't hear back, I think I'm just going to keep him. Eventually, she gets a call from someone named Jason. So he was out of the country when his dog went missing. So he had no idea until he landed back in California. So he sees all these missed calls on his phone and all the voicemails, so he's listening to them, freaking out about his dog. He loves his dog. Abby always includes dogs in her books, by the way, which I love. They almost become a main character in themselves, which I think is really nice. So because Jason is kind of busy in his life, he asks if Sloane can continue watching the dog for just a little bit longer, and she agrees. And eventually they begin kind of texting back and forth. They have some phone calls. They're kind of getting to know each other a little bit, and then something kind of spontaneous happens so that they have to meet, which is really cute. I kind of loved that part. So they meet up in person for the first time, and they very quickly begin falling for each other. I'd say this one is slightly less of a slow burn in a way, because I do believe they get together a bit sooner than you might expect. So they quickly begin falling for each other, and Sloane doesn't realize that Jason is actually an up-and-coming musician and singer named Jackson Waters. That's like his stage name. So he's very quickly rising to fame, and she finds this out quite early on, and she knows who he is, so she's freaking out a little bit, but trying to stay calm and cool in front of him. And Jason himself is busy trying to navigate his rising career and his rising fame and success, and also this new relationship with Sloane. And he's keeping somewhat of a secret from Sloane. He is going to have to go on tour for a year. And if Sloane were to go with him, she'd kind of have to give up her life in California, which is not an easy thing to do, and it's not the most realistic. So they're kind of navigating all that, and things just go on from there. So again, I think that's all I can really say without giving too much away. I love this book, you guys. I will say, with this one, I do feel like there are some aspects that are a little unrealistic, you know, but at the same time, I guess sometimes novels are meant to help us escape, right? So, it's a romance, it's a novel, it's not, I guess, meant to be super duper realistic all the time. Most of it is, I guess, but there are parts, maybe because Jason's a celebrity, that, you're kind of like, don't think that would really happen, but, it's enjoyable to read anyway. And lastly, we have Life's Too Short, which is the third and final book in the Friend Zone series. I did enjoy this one, but again, not my favorite. I would say kind of on the same level as the Friend Zone, but maybe a little bit better. So, oh, by the way, I rated the Happy Ever After playlist, I think 4.5. I would give it 4.5. It's not quite on the level as the Part of Your World series, in my opinion. I gave all those books 5 stars. I'd give this one 4.5, I think. But moving on to Life's Too Short, some of the tropes and themes in this one, we have single parent, he falls first, he falls harder, slow burn, and forced proximity. Might have missed a few, but those are the ones that I can remember. Some of the trigger warnings are, again, some of these don't relate to the main characters, but we have drug abuse, parental abandonment, parental death, grief, ALS, and hoarding. So, Vanessa is a famous blogger on YouTube. She's super famous and well-known, and she's known for her travel content and her sort of spontaneous, carefree lifestyle. She has lost her mother in a car accident, and she lost her sister to ALS, both of them before the age of 30. So her sister and her mother never reached the age of 30. Vanessa is 29, and she talks openly on her YouTube channel about the fact that she believes she inherited the gene for ALS, which, by the way, I think I briefly looked into it, and I'm not sure if it's always something that's inherited. I think it can happen quite randomly in real life, but she has it in her head that she has inherited this gene, and she believes she doesn't have much longer left to live. Again, her mother and sister passed before the age of 30, and she thinks that she is next. So after Vanessa's half-sister leaves her with her baby, Vanessa's lifestyle changes drastically, and she's now this single parent to a newborn. And then we have Adrian, who is actually Josh's cousin, and he is a well-known attorney, and he's the kind of person who's like very focused on his work. He doesn't have time for nonsense. He doesn't really take like vacations. He's just very work focused, and he doesn't travel. Like I said, he doesn't really have many hobbies, and they are next door neighbors in this apartment building. And one night Adrian cannot sleep because he hears the baby crying next door. So he ends up knocking on Vanessa's door at 4 in the morning, and instead of what you might expect, kind of him being all like angry about it, kind of what you'd imagine someone could be, he actually offers to help her at 4 in the morning. Now, I don't know about you, I would never give my child to a random man or any random person knocking at my door, but hey, it's a book, what can you do? Not very realistic in my opinion, but whatever. So he offers to help her out, but both Adrian and Vanessa are struggling with family issues, and Vanessa believes, like I said, that she doesn't have much time left. So getting into a relationship does not seem to make sense for them. They both make it clear that they're not interested in dating right now anyway, but despite this fact, as you can imagine, it's a romance book, so they begin to fall for each other. And Adrian is aware of Vanessa's fame on YouTube, but he misses one very important detail, that Vanessa may not have much life left to live. So he misses that really large fact, And Vanessa is already kind of starting to plan what life will look like after she passes. She's trying to make arrangements and plans for after she's gone. And Adrian continues to fall for her. But when the truth about Vanessa is revealed, things change. And I think, again, that is all I'm going to say about this one. I think maybe I would rate this one 3.5. I think that's what I would rate it. Again, it just wasn't my favorite. I really wanted to like it. It was the last book in the series, and I did like it and overall enjoyed it, but it just was not my favorite. So overall, I think I gave this one a 3.5. On Goodreads, they don't do half stars, so I think I rated it 3, but I really wanted to love it. It was the last book in the series, but again, there were some aspects, in my opinion, that were just kind of unrealistic. And then with Vanessa being like a famous YouTuber, I was kind of like, I just didn't love that. And as someone who makes YouTube videos, not that I'm a famous YouTuber, but I don't know, I didn't love that aspect. I felt like, again, maybe certain parts of it were a bit odd and like unrealistic in some ways. And so yeah, I don't know, I just didn't love that. So yeah, there's that. And again, I get that these are fiction, but I don't know, some things were just a bit maybe a little cringe. So yeah, overall there's that. And then I have to say about all these books, overall the 3 book boyfriends were quite charming. However, they weren't on the same level as the guys in the Part of Your World series. I think they were quite charming and not as humble maybe as the guys in the Part of Your World series, but still really great book boyfriends overall. Love them. And they fall first and harder for the girls, which is always like my favorite thing in the world. So if you couldn't tell based on what I said, my ranking from worst to best, although I wouldn't say it was terrible, but my least favorite was The Friend Zone. And then my second least was Life's Too Short. My favorite was the Happy Ever After playlist. So again, I think this one was definitely my favorite of the 2, but then if I had to rank like all of Abby's books, it's not my favorite of hers, it's not my least favorite, it's somewhere in the middle. Still really enjoyable though. Alright, so maybe I could rank all her books really quickly. I'll rank them all. So I think I'll do my favorite to least favorite, okay? So for all of Abby's books, including Say You'll Remember Me, her newest one, I think I would say my favorite was Yours Truly, hands down. Nothing can touch that book. It is literally perfection. Then I would say Just for the Summer. That was so close to Yours Truly in my opinion. So good. They're almost tied for me, to be honest. Then I would say Part of Your World is 3rd. 4th, I would actually put the Happy Ever After playlist. 5th, I would put Say You'll Remember Me. 6th would be Life's Too Short, and 7th would be The Friend Zone. And then we have a new book from Abby coming out, which I'll talk about now. So Abby has a new book coming out in April of 2026. It is called The Night We Met. And so again, this is continuing on the Say You'll Remember Me series. So she's also releasing a festive novella collection in the autumn called Merry Little Christmas. And it includes 3 short stories about 3 different couples, and it's more lighthearted and less deep. I think she said on her Instagram, she did a whole post with FAQs about the novella collection, and she said she doesn't want us crying at Christmas, so it's a bit more lighthearted, less deep. And there will actually be a physical hardcover book for this, which is very exciting because a lot of her shorter stories don't have that, but because this is 3 short stories, I guess it's enough to turn it into a physical book. And it's also going to be an ebook and audiobook, so I'm so excited for this, you guys. I cannot wait to read it. Again, I wasn't like a massive fan of Say You'll Remember Me, but I think this one's going to be really good. I think she said this one took her 2 years to write, so it was a bit harder for her to write, and sometimes I think those books end up being some of her best, the ones that are harder to write. So we'll see. And lastly, I want to promote everything Abby, so everything linked below, but be sure to, again, subscribe to her newsletter and mailing list. Also be sure to follow her on her social media. I will link her below. She's very active on TikTok and Instagram. And I highly recommend joining her Facebook readers group. I've been a part of that group for quite a few months now, and there are a lot of benefits to being a part of the group. You might find out about things sooner, and also that's how I got to read Say You'll Remember Me early, was because I kind of made a wish on NetGalley to read the book early, and I got it. So that book came out in April of this year, but I got to read it in like November, I think, or October, November last year. So there are lots of cool opportunities in her reader group, and you just get to see what other people are saying about her books, and it's just a fun group to be a part of. So yeah, definitely check that out. And yeah, I think that is mainly it for this video. So again, I will link all of Abby's things below, including Nadia cakes, so you can check that out. They do ship around the US. I don't think it's very cheap, but they do ship around the US. So if you can't make it to Minnesota or California, there are options. Maybe not cheap options, but there are options. So I think that is all I have to say for this video. So I really hope you guys enjoyed. I love talking about Abby. I love her books. And again, while this series was not my favorite, I think it's still worth reading, but definitely check out her Part of Your World series first. I saw someone on YouTube reviewing the Friendzone series, and they said that had they read the Friendzone series first, they may not have continued reading Abby's books at all. But because it's recommended that you start with the Part of Your World series, again, you get to get a sense of her better writing, her improved writing first. And if you want to go back and read the Friendzone series, again, I do think it's worth reading. So I really hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you plan to read Abby's books, if you have read her books. I would happily talk about Abby's books all day long, so let's continue the conversation in the comments. So thanks so much for watching. I love doing these book reviews and series reviews. Let me know about any recommendations you have, especially romance. I love that. Or any authors similar to Abby. I am open to hearing all of it. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.